loss of a loved one can turn your whole world upside down, and wading through the grief can be overwhelming, but you don't have to do it alone. The founder of the For Grief platform, Jon Lefrandt, is in the Pittsburgh area to speak at the National Alliance for Children's Grief Conference. It's going on through Friday. He joins us in the studio along with the CEO of NACG, that's Vicky Jay. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you so much for having us.
I know this is a really important conference that's happening, helping to educate and help others through this. But Jon, I'd like to talk with you first about what For Grief is, and you're in as one of the speakers.
No, I'm actually just here as an attendee and an exhibitor.
Yeah, I apologize.
Yeah, but good friends with Vicky Jay and just love what the National Alliance of Children's Grief is doing. But yeah, so For Grief, what that is, it actually came about to solve a problem that I had when I lost my father. But there's a great abyss that is called Google out there, and it's hard to really navigate things. And there wasn't a central location to get resources at the time of loss. And so that was kind of the origin story that came from my personal experience with loss, and in talking to other grievers, knowing that that needed to be there. So we're there to kind of build community online and help get both the grievers and the grief experts together.
What I found fascinating is that after the passing of your father, you actually got into the funeral profession.
Yeah.
And so in doing that, what did you find from people who were going through the same thing?
Yeah, a lot, actually. Yeah, I got my undergraduate degree in advertising and marketing, my master's in real estate development, and I ditched it all for the funeral business, which was never really part of my plan, but that's grief. I mean, it happens. And so I dove into the funeral profession, and I work with thousands of funeral homes, really, across all of the United States and Canada. And I figured out through that discovery process that the follow-up, we call it aftercare, but when they follow up with families after the service, that there was a big gap and that people weren't getting the resources that they need. And so I felt like with my personal experience, I could help with that.
Well, anyone who's gone through that knows that there's all of this attention in the days leading up to the funeral, and then after that happens, it's like you're alone in your grief.
Exactly.
And this is why I wanted to talk to you too, Vicky, about this, because this is specifically for children, and children can feel very much left out of all of this. Kids are resilient, they may say. Why is it so important to hold this conference to help them?
The conference is really to help those that are here to help the kids. And so we need them to understand what that means. How do you help a child? How do you recognize they need help? And then what do you do to help them? Our kids are resilient, but they're not resilient alone. There's a stat that actually says that one of the worst childhood adverse reactions is the loss of a significant person. And that affects their physical, their mental, their emotional, all kinds of things if it's not addressed.
And while we know that children do lose people in their lives, you brought up an important statistic the other day too. It can feel like you're the only one going through this at the time. If you're in high school, for instance, maybe someone else isn't going through the loss of a parent at that time, but you are.
Absolutely.
And you have no one to turn to.
And that's something that we have in common. So we really believe in the peer model. I don't want to be the only one who has lost their mom or dad. And Jon's efforts are the same, just to connect people to other people to, feel like they can heal together.
Jon, Vicky, maybe you guys can both comment on this. What are you both learning through this conference here in Pittsburgh? You said there are 4 different countries represented.
There are.
In this. But what do you feel like you're learning and taking away from this?
I'm learning so much. I was talking about it with Vicky before, and we are good friends. I am not a grief expert. I'm a business person that's able to help bring those resources together. So I'm immersing myself in the content that's there. But I think what they're also able to accomplish is this world is changing at a rapid rate, right? When you talk about artificial intelligence and social media and all of these different things, you have a lot of people with wonderful hearts that want to help these grieving people, but how to navigate that and to get the right resources in the right hands is really, really challenging. So that's what it's all about, I think, is to try and help these professionals, these social workers, these counselors really do their jobs in a wonderful way in the modern world that we live in.
Well, and we're also our world is changing. So what our kids are dealing with is really some strong things, and more than they've had in the past. So how do we change what we need to know to be able to support them through it?
Right.
The worst thing is for a child to be alone in their grief. So our mission is we don't want any child to feel alone or to have to go through the grief process by themselves. So how do we do that?
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for helping so many people out there.
Yes, well, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Still to come on Talk Pittsburgh, on the heels of this very conversation, 2 local therapists share why it's essential that men especially take care of their mental health. That discussion is up next. Stay with us.